a lot of people have this problem, and I don't understand why this is just something that I've come to
They're not musicians.
Realize. I guess that might
You're
be
a musician.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, you just have a better sense of timing. Like, it took me a long time to realize most people can't carry a tune and can't dance. And it's
the same, yeah.
Or either, really. Like, they're not good at either.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not because they're bad. It's just because, like, that is a skill. Having a sense of rhythm and timing is a skill. Not everybody has it. It's like, try watching me run. It's not worth seeing. Not worth
All
seeing.
I'm saying is, sounds like I have impeccable timing.
Sure.
That's what it sounds like.
So stipulated, counsel. You got it.
So stipulated. I love it.
So I need to come up with an intro then, right?
You don't need to do shit.
Are you sure? Because I want you to hear the first time I saw Waterworld.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah.
So my grandma used to take me to movies when I was a kid. Like that was like, we would have like an afternoon with grandma, right? Like she was like, all right, let's go to lunch or dinner somewhere and we'll see a movie. So it was like having like a little date with grandma, which was actually very fun. It's one of the ways I remember her very fondly for that. And when I was whatever age I would have been when this came out, she's like, let's go see that Waterworld movie.
Yep.
Okay. Now, at this age, and remember, I was in a very sheltered upbringing in terms of media consumption because my parents are conservative Christians. Like, just not a lot of nudity had crossed my desk. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I think I actually talked about this movie on Isme because like there was a very awkward moment in the theater with grandma when there was some real lady butt going on.
Yep.
You know, and extremely complicated emotions occurred out there at the
complicated
at sea. Complicated body parts and feelings occurred at sea.
I wouldn't say it's complicated. It's mostly just hubba or awooga.
Yes, awooga was the primary experience, but it had a soupçon of shame next to your grandmother. I think
it's true. It doesn't. It does. That does throw the old wrench in the gears.
It eliminates a couple of O's from the awooga. You know, like it's a much shorter experience.
I can't say I've ever gotten horny in front of grandma.
Well, I can't fix that for you now.
And you can't say that.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the first trauma this film inflicted on me. But it sounds like we're going to hear a lot more traumas on the film Waterworld today because this is Directorpiece Theater. I am Adam Ganser, one of our hosts. Yeah, we're living with this, Abe. Abe is the other of our hosts. Hear his voice now.
Oh, fuck, man. You are... That's all-timer right there.
Did you like it?
Yeah, you fucking knocked it out of park. I gotta up my game is how I feel about this right now because that was amazing. Yep. Yeah, that's right. He said all the words. We do the Directorpiece Theater, and what that means is since we have a director minds, we've directed. We decided that we'd make a show about talking about directors and their tactics and whatnot. And this one is a weird one because sometimes we like to take kind of a break from that, like examination of the, mechanics of filmmaking.
Yeah, the techniques.
And just kind of look at the productions and stories about some movies. And he's absolutely right. This is about Waterworld. And a while ago, I kind of covered on this podcast the movie Twister.
Sure did.
And we talked about how the production was riddled with problems, with like weather, injuries, walkouts. It was a mess.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of one of those episodes.
I think this is great.
We're doing one of those.
I love this because so much of this stuff never really makes it to the public.
You kind of have to search for it.
Yeah, that's right. They bury it a little bit.
I mean, there are freaks who look at trivia on IMDb.
Sure.
Like, there are freaks out there.
Yeah, there are freaks.
And they should be stopped or give them a podcast.
Or rewarded.
Those are the two options.
Give them power or take them out of the town square.
That's right.
One of the two.
And I think since we covered Twister before, which is remembered as one of the best films of all time, right?
I appreciate the early troll.
Casablanca.
I don't hate Twister. I know that's directed at me. I don't hate Twister. I think it's fine.
No.
I think it's fine.
Have you?
I liked it.
Have you heard that they're making a sequel, right?
That is astounding to me. It doesn't have Bill Paxton, obviously.
No, he would be dead.
It's just Helen Hunt in a different relationship.
It's not even Helen Hunt, man.
So it's just tornadoes.
I don't think. Maybe there is.
It's just
I
tornadoes.
haven't read it. Actually, you want to know what the title of the movie is?
Yeah.
Twisters.
Oh, yeah.
2. It's 2 of them.
Great.
Some great minds over there.
Did you know that our mutual friend and director Jamie Winterstern made a movie that
Supercell?
Yeah, Supercell is also
go out and see it.
A similar story about storm chasers.
I love storm chasing movies. I'll watch schlock.
He's very passionate about it. Like it was a work.
I feel like I should talk to him about this because I'll watch garbage. Like there was a garbage movie called, I shouldn't call things just garbage movies. We don't know who's listening, but there's a movie called Into the Storm that was made in I want to say 2018, but I'm probably wrong about that.
Is it straight to VHS
kind of? Yeah. Straight to streaming kind of idea. And Matt Walsh is in it, not the pundit, not the political person, but the Upright Citizens Brigade comedian, Matt Walsh, who you recognize probably from Veep,
the one you'd like to watch. Yeah.
He's in it, and that's weird, but it's because I'm fascinated when they have the sequence where they go all right, so this is the car that we're going to be using to chase the tornado, and it's got 80 cameras on it, and it's got armor plating, and it's got a grid and a thing that a tank where you can put your head up and into it and see 360, and I'm that the gear stuff. I want a movie that's
so
just
much
gear stuff.
You're such a gearhead. In your heart you are.
In Twister, when they're talking about Dorothy, I'm oh yeah.
I actually sometimes when I think of film directors who could have had an Abe-esque career or vice versa, I think of Jan de Bont. Honestly,
Jan de Bont.
Yeah, because I
it's
feel
a pretty good one.
Yeah, that he seems up your alley, the way he does stuff and the way the area he came from. Not the abuse of power stuff.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, not that. No, definitely
more
not that.
the man who shot Die Hard.
Yeah.
I hope is what you mean.
Yeah, the way he thinks about film, I feel also connects to you.
Well, thank you. That's kind of you to say. You're so kind.
Thank you.
Today.
Well,
you're
not,
what else?
Because you're forcing us to talk about Waterworld.
We're talking about Waterworld again, the best film ever made according to all critics. It has a very storied past. Some people might know about this who the freaks who check IMDb. But if you aren't a freak who checks IMDb, guess what? You got one right here who's going to tell you about it.
Yeah, you
are.
So
production was basically haunted, and I'm going to break down how it wasn't just the physical restrictions of the plan or the OSHA violations that really got us here. The production broke something also in Kevin Costner, its star and co-director, which I assume darkens his soul to this day.
Sure.
So it's really gotten an emotional toll. Literally, there's a floating atoll set in this, and
you know what's weird about that?
We're gonna talk about that. Yeah,
that set is the best part of the movie, and it's in the first act.
Oh yeah,
that's a weird thing about this movie. The best stunts they do, and the best set piece, the thing you remember from it, all happens before the story really gets going.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so strange.
It's kind of in Avatar, there's something to be said about, and welcome to Avatar. You remember that famous line that they say in Avatar?
That's right. They turn to camera. Welcome to Avatar.
You have now become Avatar. And then it shows a wide shot of everything. You go, ooh, and ah. It's that moment, right? It's because everything else is just fucking sea.
That's right. There's not much to look at in Waterworld. That's
but
accurate.
This is a crazy production because not only have floating sets on water on real ocean. This is not shot in the back lot of some place.
Right.
They got also the stuff that's in there. It's all steel beams and flamethrowers and cameras on jet skis, helicopters flying around with cameras buzzing, explosions all the time, fire constantly. And it was shot off the shore of the Hawaiian Islands about a mile away. So one question to the audience, what could go wrong? Well, let's kind of start with the obvious.
The greatest tragedy here is the dumb toll. Like, just like the toll the dumb takes on you. I think it's a big part of it.
I'm reminded of the meme of the Stupid Ways to Die song.
Yeah, yes, Dumb Ways to Die. That's right.
Or Dumb Ways to Die.
I've somehow seen this movie over 4 times.
Of course.
Like, that is celestially unfair. Like,
it's so unfair.
No reason for that to happen.
It doesn't deserve it, yet it does.
Yeah, yet it does. I agree. Please continue.
Yep, the paradox is real. So the first life lesson that Waterworld brings to us is, I think that you'll find it's a smart decision in movie making where control is everything. Don't shoot on water. Open water. Don't do it. And now, obviously, one of the reasons so few films choose to so let's say, I'm sure you all agree just with that statement, but let's go into a few things. One of the reasons so few films take place on open water is that it's so hard to get a stable shot on the surface because it's constantly moving the boats and the lights and the things necessary to get the shot you want. So shots will take hours to set up.
God.
Even simple shots like a close-up. And this is, so that obviously is something, you shouldn't do that for filmmaking, right? You need to move fast. This is something that Spielberg, who had moved away from Universal, who made this picture, he had moved away from Universal at this point to make it for DreamWorks. But he was still in communication with all the people there at Universal, and he was like, hey, I got some advice for you. Don't do this. And this is because he had the experience of Jaws.
Right.
And that's a well-known movie for another horrifying production. So he's basically saying don't do it. And they did not listen to Stevie.
Jaws was on the water so much less than this movie is. Like, right. Jaws is like maybe a third as much screen time on the water, that. You know?
Yep. And one of those reasons, I could cite the fact that Bruce the shark in Jaws almost sank several times, would get waterlogged and would almost be gone. And then they would be like, well, now we don't have a shark.
Yeah.
We have a backup shark, kind of. But many of the sets that were constructed on Waterworld literally sank into the bottom of the ocean.
That happens?
Yeah.
They lost sets?
Yes.
No.
Multiple. And boats. Some could be salvaged because the thing about the way if you're smart and you're an engineer, like craftsmen and craftswomen who work on Waterworld they find a way to make it like a slow kind of sink. It's not like it sinks and then it's gone, like we all experience when we make our paper boats.
Right, it's Titanic.
And put them in our pools. They think of things, so it's like, it's sinking. Okay, well, we got it's pretty good right now because we put stuff in it for contingency. You can tell I'm not really an engineer, but I know that there's the idea of engineers. Point is, they could retrieve some of them and then repair them, but that still itself is costly. But absolutely, and they did, they lost some of them, literally sunk costs from production.
Meanwhile, Kevin Costner's just handing out fiddles and they're all just playing them as it's sinking.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to keep playing.
Another thing I want to mention is weather, because most of us live on land. In fact, I would argue all of us do.
Yeah.
If you are on the sea, the wind is an issue. So constantly also put in your head that things are debris is constantly being blown off set regularly, even though they try to secure it. The winds are very high. And more importantly, weeks into production, the largest set piece, what we were talking about earlier, the floating town called the Atoll, was slammed by a hurricane.
That's a nightmare, man.
Most of these problems, you'll realize, weren't because there was idiots at the helm, but rather there were idiots at the helm. And I say this in a certain way because it's not like they didn't plan for this. It's that the production kept going longer and longer and longer.
So then it became impossible. Right.
Now we're dealing with like, oh shit, we're filming in monsoon season. So yeah, Hawaii is not the easiest place to get along with weather-wise if you're trying to do this.
And this is such a thing in production, by the way. Like Abe and I can recall a time where we decided when we were working at Correct that we were going to shoot in the desert. Right?
Yeah.
So like that desert shoot was supposed to happen in April. But so then what happens is that like behind the scenes, there's a bunch of conversations about, well, are these even the right things to shoot? And you change plans. And so you start having to make gambles with this plan to salvage it, right? Like that's what happened here is they start
because
making
what are you
going
to
do?
Not
do
make
it?
The thing?
Exactly.
You've already spent money on making the thing and time. You know, you got to make the thing.
And
right?
that resulted in us shooting in summer in the desert, which is a completely different experience. And it was a lot harder. You know?
And it happened again when we shot in Idlewild
in the winter.
Where I was shooting, and I was like, suddenly there's snow.
Right.
Don't know if
this
is going to
cut because of that. Yeah.
Guess I'm not going to shoot that angle.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
Like that's how you adjust, and that's the unique aspect of some filmmakers' powers. Some people have control of everything, and they're like, we manufacture it so that you get that one beautiful moment at golden hour, and you just say, get it, and you get it. Other times you're like, well, we only have so much money. Most of the time, in fact, most productions have this, where it's just like you have to, I don't know, man, we got to get this, but we can only get this now. We did plan on doing this, and we had a contingency and a contingency with a contingency, but two of those got fucked off. So here we are.
So here's
with no
the best
contingency.
We can make of this mess. Yeah. That is
exactly.
a skill. That is
it is a skill.
Kevin Reynolds,
you kind of have to be calm all the time.
Yeah. Kevin Reynolds does seem like a guy who can kind of piece things together. You know, like his films have that feeling of like being competent enough that they feel like he can extract something serviceable and competent out of these circumstances. You know, like I'm not saying Waterworld is a good film, but I do think that it shows a person who knows how to make a film in the broad, underlined, competent sense of the word.
Oh, absolutely. He makes huge films.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of work from everyone.
Absolutely. This is a
you
nightmare.
need to be a general.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like getting hit by a hurricane. And I will tell you that this hurricane that I'm referencing, which it didn't kill the set, obviously. It was damaged and they repaired it, and they had to stop production to do so, adding more days to the production where, some people had to still get paid and not work, and other people had to, like carpenters and stuff who you didn't anticipate having to pay now are accruing more hours. So you see how this money is now very inefficient. And then realize that was one hurricane. What happens when there's 3 hurricanes?
Ugh.
Now, I know you think I'm going to pitch Perfect Storm right now. Well, it's not like 3 hurricanes forming like a super hurricane and like hitting Waterworld. That would be too awesome. No, it's just that there was 3 hurricanes during the production of this movie in Hawaii. One hit the actual production. The 2 other ones just affected the days and let's not shoot during a hurricane.
Right.
They had to stop kind of, it was nearby, and they're like, well, are we worried about this? Well, let's not look west, and stuff like that. So it still had influenced production and, but literally damaged sets from this kind of stuff, which, 3 months out, you can say what if there's a hurricane, but then you're there 3 months later and you're like, literally there's a hurricane. So what are we going to do? And by the way, I want to mention with this this huge set piece, the floating town, used all of Hawaii's steel. They literally bought all of Hawaii's steel. In fact, they had to fly more steel in from California.
God.
They took all of the island's steel. So imagine that, where it's like you're just living in Hawaii where you do. And you're like, you know what I want today? I want to build something out of steel. Nope,
sorry,
you can't.
They're in Waterworld, bro.
They're in Waterworld.
Forget about it, Hawaii steel. It's Waterworld.
In the end, 1,000 tons of steel.
That's wild.
To make the atoll set. in Waterworld. I mentioned 3 hurricanes. There was also a tsunami warning with one of them.
I shouldn't laugh.
So they had to shut down production.
Because, I guess I don't track Hawaii's weather that much. This sounds like particularly intemperate weather for Hawaii. Like, they got really bad weather, right?
Yeah, they got bad weather.
Yeah. Man, that sucks.
But this is like, you kind of, you shoot in Hawaii and you're kind of like, I want that look. I want this season. I kind of gonna live with it, and you plan for it. True. This is not the biggest problem with the movie Waterworld.
No, not at all. Like, if you go back and watch Lost, which was also shot in Hawaii, there's lots and lots of scenes in Lost where there's rain happening, but they didn't light it because it's not supposed to be raining. So like you almost don't see it. But if you're looking carefully, like, they're kind of wet and like, oh, I see some
rain.
They're
kind of dark. Yeah.
Because, they had to shoot when it was raining. That's just what being in Hawaii is. So like, it was a bit of a foreseeable consequence, but a tsunami's pretty bananas.
I mean, the tsunami kind of comes out of the hurricanes and such, and they weren't affected by the tsunami. It was just a warning. They shut down production. The point is more time,
right?
And there's other aspects, just like anyone. Like, this is all the don't shoot in open water aspect. You also making a movie about there's literally no land. And when the only land near you is Hawaii, which isn't that small when you're like near it, because you don't want to go too far into the open ocean. They had to take like mountains and islands out in visual effects in post. So that kind of accrues every time you're trying to like, well, let's just do this cheap now. It's like, well, you're going to incur a cost in post if you aren't smart about shooting everything perfectly with the plan where there's no islands behind you. There's that as well.
Had to be pretty cost prohibitive, one would think.
Very much so. Yeah. So imagine that also on your mind. All of this cost, overflow budget. This is all things I'm talking about that they planned for a little bit, but it pushed them even further than they thought. Which point they actually cut from the script a whole subplot that you've never seen, that there was a whole slaver faction thing that happened, which I think is why a lot of people, when you watch Waterworld, you go like, this is boring or paced strangely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they cut out probably like 15% of the movie straight up during production, where you said, we're not going to do that. That's not going to be a part of the script. We'll add pages here and there or whatever to beef up the things we like, but we're just not going to shoot those things.
Also, that sounds like a thing that we would have wanted to see in this world.
Oh, absolutely. Where they like start a revolution or something like that.
That does feel like a natural extension of this apocalyptic landscape.
I mean, it's like Demolition Man without Huxley and Dennis Leary.
Right. Without that underground faction. Yeah.
Turning it into like partners. Yeah,
I agree.
Anyway.
It does feel like it's missing, the world is missing character in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, there's tiny little towns, and then there's Dennis Hopper, who's awesome. Mm-hmm. But it's just him. It's just him and his world. Like, that's kind of all there is.
Exactly.
Yeah, anyway.
So let's talk about the cost of it. Like, actually get into I'm just talking widely about, like what are things that are cost prohibitive.
And the budget of this film.
Right. Literally, and I took this from Ranker, which has a good kind of article. It's just kind of an aggregate article where it says that Waterworld began as like, it started as a script as like a $5 million Mad Max ripoff.
That's impossible to imagine.
That was the original script, was something that was like could be filmed for $5 million.
Okay.
And then it got so much buzz that it got bumped to 30 million. And they were like, okay, let's get some people involved in this. This is a good script. And this is how a lot of films, like action films, this is the story. And for comparison, Point Break, which came out, several years earlier, but around the same time, costs 30 million. So this is going to be a Point Break no matter what, is what the studios are thinking. And the previous film that Kevin Costner and the director of Waterworld, Kevin Reynolds, Their previous film that they shot together, which was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, cost $48 million.
And also famously ballooned in cost.
Right.
Like they famously lost control of the budget.
We're at $30 million before 2 A-listers are about to enter the picture.
Right.
And then they set up shop and started looking at the actual, like, all right, now we're in Hawaii. We decided on Hawaii. Let's talk to Hawaii. Get all the people involved who are going to help us in Hawaii to make this film. Because you never really know until you talk to the place, because they're going to have their own rates and their own things that they need.
You can guess, but
not
really
you
know.
Can't.
Yeah.
Because we're going to learn why. The budget quickly ballooned to $65 million.
That's actually not that surprising.
Double.
But that's not that surprising, because this is a really hard idea to do.
Right. Yeah. And we're going to explain at all the tiers why this is happening. But the film itself, once completed, ended up costing, and remember, this is 1990s money, $175 million.
That's a crazy number. That is a wild number.
And the movie ended up in the black.
That's also very surprising.
It would actually be considered a minor success today. And this is what I like. The Ranker article points out that Independence Day was made the following year for the price of $75 million. So 175 versus 75. Independence Day, Waterworld.
And Independence Day feels so much more substantial and epic as a story than Waterworld does. Yeah.
Another way of saying all of this, too, is Waterworld, if it were made today, would be upwards of $300 million, adjusted for inflation, etc.
What movie costs $300 million now?
Right.
Is there a movie that costs that much money? Like Avatar? What's Avatar cost?
Yeah, Avatar. We get... Some of the big ones are like $200 million. I don't think $300 million... Maybe it's been crossed. I think maybe an Avatar is crossed at $300 million.
Yeah.
So now that we kind of have a framework of where it was at each section. So by the time that we got to like the $65 million number, I want us to take a moment and hear this fact. The script was not locked before production.
But this is the story. This is what you hear all the time. This is how those big budget movies get out of control cost-wise, because the reason it's not locked is they want to be flexible enough to adjust because of budget. But what ends up happening is they get ideas based on the circumstances they're going to have to film in that end up costing them more money, because they waste time and they do rewrites and then they reshoot. So like they end up sort of searching for the movie because they were trying to be flexible enough to keep the movie under budget. It's what always happens.
This movie did a lot of that, in fact.
Right.
A lot of reshoots. Kevin Costner reportedly invested $22 million of his own $1990 into Waterworld. So much money. But he's Kevin Costner, remember, at height of his power.
I'm still surprised he's worth that much money at that time. Mm-hmm. Like I know he's been a lead of movies, like several movies.
I mean, he was a producer as well, remember?
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of producing.
And he didn't Dance with the Wolves at this point and Robin Hood. Yep. So I guess that makes some sense.
He directed Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he chose not to direct some of these films in light of that, actually.
I think because he always saw himself as a more sensitive man, and you bring in Kevin Reynolds in for like the dumb blockbuster one. I don't know. I can't speak for him, but that's the narrative I like.
Maybe he thinks of himself as a prestige director.
I think if he thinks of himself as a prestige director,
which is amazing.
Which is fine. I mean, he Dances with Wolves
is a prestige film. So's The Postman.
It is. Abe. Yeah. I mean, at what Costner is what I'm saying.
Good. A bad pun. I like that. I like what you're doing here.
Okay. So, obviously, at some point in the production, Universal pushed back. And it was like, no, you can't extend so many days. Cut these scenes, do this. Costner's like, nah. But one of the things he did was alter his contract so he'd take 15% less of gross. So he really was invested in this movie.
That's a lot
paying
of
his own money, taking a lot of gross. And that could be way more than $22 million for all he knows. Because you think that the movie you're working on is going to be the biggest thing in the world,
right?
It's
going to make $250 million or whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
But like, what percent was he getting before of the gross?
I mean, he was producing and directing, or backseat directing the film,
I guess, but
and starring in it.
It's just kind of that's a shocking number because like getting gross revenue is reserved for the top tier.
I bet he was getting like half.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, he's like going to take 15% less. It's like, so wait, he's going to get half the money this movie makes? Yeah, that is an astounding deal. I feel like those. I mean,
once everyone's made whole, but yeah,
right. They recover costs, but that's net, dude. That's not gross. That's net.
Yeah, gross is just straight up
whatever it makes. I make 50%. Yeah. That's pretty wild.
I mean, they're selling action figures and stuff, so.
I'm sure he saw himself. I'm sure he saw an action figure version of the Mariner and was like, "Yeah, everyone's gonna want to play with this.
Everyone's gonna want to fuck this toy."
I just want you to imagine every meeting and conversation that he's having, all of them. He's wearing the hair the way that he's wearing it in this movie.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
It's wet. Oh, it's barely enough hair. It's all of that.
By the way,
yeah,
barely enough hair. Yeah. By the way, that's one of the factoids. Well, it's not even a factoid. And I didn't include this, but I'm going to say it now because you mentioned the hair. It's something that is a claim that has been disputed by Costner, so I am like use this power for good because I wouldn't go like saying this.
We'll see.
But I did read multiple times, and multiple journalistic, websites have said that Kevin Costner asked and was pretty adamant early on that asking visual effects about what they could do with his thinning hair.
I mean, of course,
which is tough. It's a
bold decision to have hair like this in this movie,
and yeah. And it's also like you're a leading man and, right. Like whatever.
Right.
But I just thought that was an interesting thing. He denies it, but it's easy to make up these rumors, easy to deny these rumors.
But it's a rumor based
websites that wrote it.
Fair enough. It's a rumor based around a thing we all can see, which is this is not a good look for his hair.
Right.
Yeah,
and I don't know how I feel about that too. I probably shouldn't even mention it, but
I'm going bald as we speak.
It's funny, because Kevin Costner, the guy's fine.
Yeah, I'm not making fun of him at all. I'm just like well, that's not true. I'm just saying that hair is hilarious because it's just not a good hairstyle. Like if I was him, I would like to think that I would say, this is not going to be flattering for me, so let's pick a different hairstyle. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that's so funny.
Your hair's getting wet, there's only so much you can do.
There's nothing you can do for thinning hair when it's wet. Like, that's the worst it could be. Anyway,
so he knows.
I'm not trying to be a jerk, so that's enough.
You're not a jerk. Okay. It's just Kevin Costner, baby. We're going to be fine.
Well, also, I am balding, so I think about this all the time. You know what I mean? This is in my calculus. I feel it. I feel the Mariner's pain, I feel it.
Another cost I want to bring up, or it's kind of related to, how that number ballooned from 30 to 65 when they started looking into Hawaii and they were like, yeah, that's where we want to shoot. Something that happens is local production crews, builders, transportation offices, stuff like that. They'll take advantage of a production knowing that there's no option for the production to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
So they hike up their price to an astronomical amount. And so that is also one of those things where it justifies that 50% increase, or, rather I should say 200% increase.
They took him to lunch at Disneyland is what happened.
That's right.
That's what happened.
That's what that looks like. There were also thefts.
Wow.
Many enough computers, generators, parts of sets.
That sucks.
Just taken, presumably, by the conveyor belt of 300 plus extras needed day in and day out.
Right.
So the film originally budgeted for a 96-day shoot, which that's healthy. That's a
long shoot.
Yeah. If we were to make independent features, a lot of them, that would be 3 of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Because some of them are made in 20 to 30 days, The shoot took a little under 200 days.
This is awful.
To finish.
This is just awful. It's a Stanley Kubrick film now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, I mean, obviously I mentioned the weather and the slowdowns from just shooting on the water. One of the big ones, actually, that was mentioned is that anytime anyone needs to go to the bathroom or needs something or left something on a boat, they had to be shuttled by another boat. They can't just move the boats that you're on. Because that needs to be in a place. You're choreographing a huge dance.
That's a really
between
surprising
80 boats.
Fact. Like, I would think that they would have boats that were basically just like honey wagons and like storage and stuff.
I mean, you can only do that so much.
I guess.
You don't know what you don't know. And so that apparently early on, especially, was just a debilitating speed for the movie shoot.
That's a nightmare.
And I think that was one of the things that Stevie was talking about. He's like, look, here's the biggest thing. No one really has the expertise of shooting it out in the open water. Like, people on Jaws now know, but you're going to have a tough learning curve. And you're going to realize that, oh shit, I need that thing. And I didn't even think that I don't have that thing. Like, you can plan and plan and plan. All you need is one thing to go wrong, one cog. And then suddenly the whole shoot needs to wait 2 hours so that they can get into makeup or something. Yep. So this ruined numerous, especially earlier in the production days.
I got to tell you, if there's any environment that you get told in film school not to shoot at, it's the water. They tell you this all the time. I mean,
it's the worst thing you could do.
Right.
It's like don't shoot in space. Well, yeah, duh.
Because you can't get there. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only reason why you can't get there. But if you could get there, they would be less upset about space than water. Because, I'm serious. Because, water is unpredictable, and it gets everywhere, and it destroys. Like, there is no way to accurately game plan for water other than whatever you think, make it 10 times worse. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right about water. Totally wrong about
space. I know. I'm just doing a bit.
But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely
right. I made a short film that took place in the ocean. Abe knows about it because he loves making fun of me for it. And he's right, too. It's not that great. And the faculty, this is at USC, the faculty were relentless about do not go shoot in the ocean.
Don't go into the water.
In the ocean, man. Don't do it. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And so they made me do all these trials, basically, to prove that I was ready to handle shooting in the ocean. One of which was, and Abe's going to love this, they made the producers and director, that's me, go out and sit in the ocean for 45 minutes in January to prove that we were going to handle the waves and the temperature.
Yeah.
And that sounds like, no big deal. Dude, the ocean in January, the Pacific Ocean in January.
Are you kidding me? No, it's not. That's a huge deal.
Gnarly, bro. It is gnarly. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I was definitely like one of my crew who should not be named bailed pretty quick. And I stayed out there for 45 minutes with single guns in the air because I'm like, we're doing this, man.
We're doing this.
Yeah, it's very George Costanza.
Baby.
We're doing it. Yeah,
screaming to yourself, this is my dream.
But at the end of the day, honestly, they were right because
they were right.
You can't predict. There's just so many things you can't predict. What's it going to be like for the actor to be in the water? There's a lot of scenes in this movie where the actors are in the water and you don't even know what that's going to be.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get ahead.
We're going to talk about it. Yeah. But I just want to add this fun little note because imagine the boldness and the gall to say, let's shoot a movie underwater or on water. And here's something that I wanted to point out that I read, and you're going to love this. An early draft of the script, Costner's character had a horse below deck.
I can't even... Why? Why would that be?
I think it was to show that he had been to dry land, but it's hilarious to have a horse. They also... They went out of the way to say that the script, no one sees the horse. You see the horse as the viewer.
No
Costner
one else
has
does.
the horse,
right?
But it's a secret that he has.
I mean, that's actually a little bit consistent with the character to have a stupid secret.
Totally, it's just funny.
It's
to
very
have a secret horse and
horse, incredible
in Waterworld, So it's just that's just a dumb. So imagine if they actually went through with that script. Imagine all these problems
and a horse.
Also, you have a horse.
That sounds terrible. I can't believe nobody at the story level's like, why would we need to prove that he's been to dry land? He hasn't been. That's the story.
That's why they cut the horse.
Yeah, not the production problems. Got it.
Yeah, got it. Just funny. Just funny. Hey, you want to talk? Let's talk about injuries, because you mentioned you made a good story about before I mentioned the horse thing, you made a good story about going in the water and how it's terrible.
It is.
So here we go. Number of people got seasick throughout the production. A good number of people, including a few of the stars. Kevin Costner's stunt double, Norman Howell, suffered a near-fatal embolism while filming a deep-sea dive from the bends.
Wow. From the bends. Yep. Oh, no.
Yep,
man,
you got
keep
the
hearing
bends,
that
baby.
shit. Yeah.
It's fucked.
Yeah.
Almost died.
Yeah.
People got stuck on boats and masts for hours. Costner is one of them. Described how he spent 2 hours stuck on a boat mast in order to get a helicopter shot. I found an interview with Costner, and this is literally his words. I read about the Twilight Zone and every fucking thing else. And he's talking about the notorious 1982 accident where actor Vic Morrow and 2 children were killed by a helicopter, which is gnarly.
Yeah, really gnarly.
And famous. Costner continues, the helicopter was about 20 feet away from me, and he yelled, "Back the fuck up." But he was drowned out by the roar of the helicopter, and he frantically waved the pilot away. They got the shot, but as the boat turned around, a fierce gale blew up, and, quote, "I don't know what the reason was, but we had purposely gone out to one of the windiest channels in the world." He was not happy, says the producer, who was safe on the shore. So it's like he got stuck in a mast for many hours and then almost died, and then he has to just keep sitting there because they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna get you now that you got the shot. We're gonna get you, but it's gonna be like 20 minutes." And he's dealing with life or death situations.
So he's like literally tied to the mast. Is that what's happened?
Yeah,
and they can't get up there because it's so windy.
He's secured, and it's so windy, but it's windy enough that he was like scared if he would be blown out.
Awful.
So he's like literally in this, like, just this absolute house of horrors where it's like you got blades on one side and you might get knocked out of your only security on the other. It's terrible.
I gotta say,
it's terrible.
That is terrible. I gotta say, I know exactly the shot though. I know exactly the shot.
Cool.
It's a really good shot.
I know. Yeah,
but it's not worth it. Totally not worth it.
Yeah. And it probably would have been better if they chose a better, like area to shoot. But like, what can you do? Yeah, can you control the weather? Janine Triplehorn and the child actress Tina Maharino nearly drowned when they were thrown from the mariner's boat. I don't know exactly because I don't know boats, but bowsprit.
I have no idea. I'm not going to even pretend like I know.
Thing that probably holds you to the boat snapped. And they had to be saved by a team of 12 divers.
With a child actress.
With a child. It could have literally been Twilight Zone again.
Yeah.
This is haunting stuff. A little less haunting, but still, shitty. It was a rite of passage to work on Waterworld to get stung by a jellyfish.
That means lots of people are peeing on each other.
A lot of pee.
Yeah.
Waterworld, and just a bunch of crew members just like, I'm going to piss on you, and then you piss on me.
Well, they're taking breaks from the drinking machine. Baby. Like, they're taking breaks from that converter machine at the top of the movie. I'm done making water. Now it's time for me to make salvation for your stung leg, bro.
Some guys, like, I remember the good old days. Productions like Waterworld, when I was a crew on Waterworld, we just pissing on each other.
I was a pissing PA. That was my job.
Hell
Drink as much water as I could.
They just hire people to piss. Yeah, there
you go. Piss. Great for negating stings.
Now, I promised at the top of this podcast that it's not just the physical and economic toll that the production of Waterworld wrought to the world, but rather the emotional toll of 2 Kevins. And those Kevins are Kevin Reynolds and Kevin Costner.
Poor Kevs. Yeah.
The tale of 2 Kevins.
Yeah.
And they were great friends. As we mentioned, creatively and in person. And on this movie, though, as was true on Prince of Thieves, they were disagreeing with each other constantly, to the point that Reynolds quit midway through the production. So even though he's given the credit and he came back for post, he straight up walked away from physical production.
At what point in the movie did he do that? Midway, you're saying?
I don't know. I don't think they actually have that information. Maybe someone who's better at research can track it down, but I spent a lot of time.
The tales I hear about Kevin Reynolds, just to be I'm not taking Costner's side or anything. The tales I hear about Kevin Reynolds are that he's extraordinarily difficult and temperamental. Like that seems to be the news on him. So like I'm not taking the wind out of this conflict, but and obviously these bad situations will make that happen.
They were two highly successful, very opinionated people.
Correct.
Who maybe couldn't hold together through all of the aspects of production, which are because they're getting put through the ringer here too. So I imagine no one is at their best. And these two had been working since the 80s. Reynolds gave Costner a huge role early in life that put him on the map, more or less. It was in a film called Fandango.
Yep.
They later collaborated on Dances with Wolves. That was Costner direction, but he was constantly having phone calls with Reynolds, a la, kind of like Kubrick and Spielberg.
So they're pretty good friends then.
They're good friends.
That's a pretty good friend relationship then.
And Robin Hood Prince Thieves came along, and that kind of stressed the relationship because, according to probably Reynolds, Costner's ego kind of got large at that point, right? So you can't have two, pit bulls in that's not true. You can have as many pit bulls as you want. Pit bulls are great. I'm just saying that you can't have two angry dogs in one space.
Not if they're fighting each other. Yeah.
Not if they're fighting each other. Costner's ego is pretty large at this point because, it would be. Your success is, he was the A-lister, top of the A-list.
As much as we joke about Dances with Wolves, him directing that film had to have been such a massive validation of talent for him.
Huge.
Because, I don't know what else he's directed, but that would be an extraordinary film to successfully direct. It's really well made. It's well made. Andy was the lead in it, and it was a big deal. It's just hard to quantify the impact that has on yourself. Self-esteem.
Right before Waterworld.
Right.
But yeah, even in Prince of Thieves, Reynolds left. That he has a history of this, and Costner had to take over, and Costner was going to get the job done. So there's
Prince of Thieves had a lot of conflict on it. That's the news. There was a lot of conflict on it. And so this dynamic of these two guys not getting along is that is their dynamic.
That seems to be their dynamic between these two movies. A really good start, some good career, friendship, and then it just turns into, we're not really clicking like we used to. But so this, in Waterworld, the rift particularly started in pre-production because Costner took control of the script months before the production started, which isn't unheard of. It's just it sounds like he was pretty authoritarian on it. Because in an interview in Entertainment Weekly, Kevin Reynolds said, quote, he's saying this to Kevin Costner, quote, "If you were director, would you let someone do what you're doing right now?" Costner recalls, and I said, "No, but I wouldn't be in this position." Which kind of tells you everything you need to know.
That's a lot more transparency than I'd expect from Kevin Costner.
Or Entertainment Weekly, but here we are.
Well, I think Entertainment Weekly is thrilled.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. I don't need to throw shit.
Oh, yeah, right.
Reynolds was already kind of cracking under the stress of filming the movie. But really what fucked him up was after leaving the production, Reynolds said, in the future, Costner should appear in pictures he directs himself only. That way he can always be working with his favorite actor and his favorite director.
Damn, that's emotional.
So that tells you the extent to which we're dealing with these two Kevins.
Putting it out in public like that is a pretty big divorce. You know, like putting it in Entertainment Weekly is like, I hate your guts.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Although, yeah, because that's like, even if it's after the fact,
it's not a good career move for either of them.
Right.
Ultimately.
Later, though, they came together to create a miniseries called Hatfield and McCoy's, and they co-directed it and stuff. So I guess Water Under the Bridge.
I guess.
Waterworld Under the Bridge. Now, there's a lot more things going into this than just like if you just have this kind of satellite view of like, here's two egotistical people, which I still think could be the tagline here. But Kevin Costner was going through a divorce at the time.
Sure.
Like literally during this production. He banned tabloids on set. There's a funny story. Dennis Hopper shows it to him, which sounds like a real dick move by Dennis Hopper to be like, check out this tabloid on you, calling because everyone wanted to know about this huge production in Hawaii, Waterworld. Right. Also, Kevin Costner's in the middle of a divorce, and he has 3 children. All this shit. Apparently, also Kevin Costner was a fuck beast. Like he was out fucking all the time. Because I guess if you're newly divorced,
I guess.
You're Kevin Costner in the 90s, what are you going to do?
He's probably also like trying to soothe the pain of dealing with this. He's probably like Don Drapering his life right now. You know what I mean? Like trying to like get through this nightmare. Just feel good for a few minutes. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know where that rumor comes from, but I completely understand how it could happen.
There's a few more points I want to make about the morale on set, which was not very good. The crew turnover was very high.
Who wants to work on this? This sounds awful.
Right. Several members of the near 500-person crew were fired or walked off the picture, including the assistant director.
That's bad.
The AD, Alan Curtis, who left over creative differences, quote. Now, an assistant director is in charge of making sure the day's production runs smoothly.
Yeah, they're the
goddamn nightmare.
Yeah.
Goddamn nightmare for a film like this. So when an AD leaves a production, it's usually because they think this is a disaster. It's a ship that's like sinking. I need to get off this ship so my career can be saved.
Well, also, what if somebody gets hurt or dies? You know what I mean? Like when
then
you get to
my
that
career's
point.
over. Yeah. So I don't want to be here. So that's usually what they do. Now, there's a few other notable. The designer who created the huge gates for the atoll also walked off the set for some creative difference.
That thrills me.
And I believe that one is actually probably a creative difference. Based off how you read it, it seems like he finished his work, but then like the adjustments and all the demands of the production, he was just like,
I'm so curious what that.
It's too hard.
I'm curious what that would be, because like this is gonna sound very condescending. I don't like Waterworld, obviously. I don't think Waterworld's design is fun to look at. Like I think it's very creative in a lot of ways.
Oh, I like the steampunk element of it.
Yeah, it's well made in that it makes sense, but I don't like being there. You know, like maybe that's just an Adam thing. Like, so it's interesting to me to think of a designer who's like really trying to make this work, and then like, but like when you say this, it's like, let's make everything look ramshackle and thrown together, but still structurally sound.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and then like getting notes on that that's gotta be frustrating, right? Am I being too reductive here?
I'd say that's, absolutely. So the crew, presumably called Waterworld Kevin's Gate as a pun.
I'm sorry. Is this just a joke you wrote?
No.
Or is this a thing
they said? This is real. Oh. It's a pun on the murder cult Heaven's Gate. They called it Kevin's Gate.
You said the crew presumably called it that. I was like, so this is what you're doing when you're writing these episodes. It's like, here's a funny pun. I'm going to work it in.
I use that word presumably a lot. That's true. You know me too well. Some people called it fish tar, which I think is even better. So there's that as well.
Fish tar.
And for my final, before I take a bow, my final thing that I want to give all of you people to remember about Kevin Costner and the storied past of Waterworld is that right before he decided to make this movie, he was offered the role of Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption.
Wow. I don't like him for that, though.
I mean, sure, but I mean, it's just like...
But big role.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, because Tim Robbins kills it, but like Shawshank Redemption, Waterworld, Kevin Costner, he's just a man torn.
But like, it completely makes sense why, for him, he would pick Waterworld over Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Like, he wants to be an action star. You know, he was an action star. He wants to be what we think of Bruce Willis as being. You know? Waterworld is that. Shawshank Redemption's a drama.
That's right.
You know?
Before we had all these hot bodies, you know, these slabs of meat, we had Kevin Costner.
I mean, I think in defense of Kevin Costner, I think that...
I mean, he's handsome.
He was a handsome guy. He was in good shape. He was also tall. Like, he's not a bad marquee action guy. You know, like, I don't know what his athletic prowess is. You know, like, I don't think he can compete with The Rock or somebody like that.
I'm just alluding to the fact that he'd have to, like, Kevin Costner versus The Rock is where I really wanted to get us.
Well, you succeeded.
Here we are, baby.
Yeah, you finally got us there. I love how gleefully you remind us of Kevin Costner's mistakes.
I think Kevin Costner is kind of a perfect figure in history because he, like, as far as we know, he hasn't really done anything wrong. I mean, he has made Yellowstone. He's probably pretty conservative, so I should probably walk that back. But it's just like, he seems like a king of an innocent time. And whereas we know...
Wait, is Yellowstone bad really quick? I've never watched it. So is Yellowstone like a conservative show or something?
Yeah, I mean, it makes some cardinal sins, like, you know, scenes where you have like, you know, like scenes with the landowners of like the biggest Yellowstone park talking to the first peoples of... you know, indigenous peoples and saying like,
wow,
like, yeah, and just being like, thumbs up, we're doing what you want. And they give them a thumbs up back and go, yeah, you are, you're fighting the power, man. It's like, I don't know if that's what they, you know, it's stuff like that.
What a funny trajectory for him to be making that statement.
I mean, who knows?
When 30 years earlier he's making a very different statement.
Who knows? But it's also sad. I don't want to get into Yellowstone.
Okay, sorry.
I watched a season or two of Yellowstone.
Got it.
Because you have to. You have to see what God's up to. And,
I want to know. Yeah.
It's Yellowstone.
Anyway. It's yellow. Okay. But, I like Kevin Costner also because he is one of many other figures that are like movie stars who are not necessarily like the most compelling actors. They're just people that you like to watch a story built around.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm not saying he's a bad actor. He's been good in things.
That's why he's like perfect. Like a perfect, like he's a representative of a time. Like, you can make fun of him because he was at the height of his career in the 90s. And it was like making all of the money in the world and he wanted nothing. But he's also kind of like a sad sack. Like,
right.
He has a sensitive, like, kind of bent, you know, like,
he's in the movie business, man.
Have you seen Tin Cup, for example?
No, I'm aware of it. I've seen pieces of it. That's
probably fine.
I think Kevin Costner is an interesting data point that is on a trajectory that leads ultimately to Arnold Schwarzenegger in this one way. And that Arnold Schwarzenegger is the most this thing I'm describing. Like a person who's not really an actor, but like you like watching movies built around him because he's fun. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is extremely good about knowing who he is and like embracing that and not getting in his own way.
Oh, for real?
You know, like he's really good at that. A lot of these other actors are less good at it, and consequently, things like Waterworld come into being.
Yeah, I wonder if that's I mean, it was a success, you know, like, and if it didn't have all these production issues, because of, you know, some of them were luck in a way, it could have been a major success, you know. And from the standpoint of culturally, it was a success. It's just it had to recoup a lot of its money, so it's all behind the scenes stuff.
But people think it's bad, right?
People think it's bad.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's saying.
I think the stresses of the production are visible in the films. Like, I think the most visible one is the one I mentioned earliest in this podcast, which is there's a whole arc that isn't there, and that's probably why when you watch Waterworld, you're like, something's off here. The pacing's off because they had too little movie for the runtime. And also, at the same time, they built scenes around to fill in the details, so they had to include them, and they didn't feel as spectacular as a whole other subplot. That's one of the benefits of subplots. True. You cut away to a new thing, and you're distracted by like, that's cool now. So if you don't have that, it feels slow and relentless.
Well, there's also just two other things that don't factor into this, but I feel like might factor into the making of the movie. Like the first one is, first of all, Dennis Hopper nowhere to be found in this episode, and that's interesting. Like, how could Dennis Hopper not have made his way into these stories? Like, the guy's like a magic figure.
He was professional. He did the one thing that I did read about him is that like so Janine Triplehorn was like she was like, hey, this production has gone on for so long. It's like months at this point.
I hate this.
I hate this. I just want it to end. And Dennis Hopper was sitting probably with a cigar in his mouth and on a lawn chair. Probably. This is how I imagine the story. Responds, I don't want it to ever end. And I think he's alluding to the fact of we're getting paid. This is great. But I also like the interpretation where he's just like, this is the best day of my life every day. Every day I wake up and go, Waterworld, Waterworld.
The joy that he has in the scene where they reveal the fake eye for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Is he's just doing the best job. He's so good.
He's a professional,
in this stupid movie. Yeah, he's great in this. Like, I have fun watching him in this. So setting that aside, though, I really think this would be a problem for a production. Like, Kevin Costner's character is really, really unlikable. Like, really, really, really unlikable.
I like it.
But he's he's a mysterious asshole.
Yes.
Like a really, really shitty guy.
I wouldn't say really shitty. I wouldn't say it's a problem either. I like it.
Interesting.
I like that he's an outsider and he's bothered by he's surrounded by idiots.
He wants to kill the child right up top.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta break a few
Sometimes you gotta murder a child. Sometimes you gotta murder a child with a map.
Too, right?
She is more identifiably human than him in every way, so I'm not going to condemn the child.
No, I'm not kidding though. I do tend to like scientist characters who are like, not to be like a nerd or anything, or not to be in. You know, I know you guys got a lot of like rah spirit going on right here, but I'm going to poo the party, and I'm like, yeah, I am that guy. I do poo on the party.
I like.
And he feels like a big party pooper. Yeah,
I like a good chap ass. I like Don Draper, who I think is extremely unlikable.
Oh yeah, he's
as a character, you know, and I don't like him because he's handsome. I like him because he's interesting. I'm not sure the Mariner is interesting, but that's not Kevin Costner's fault.
I wouldn't even put Don Draper in the same conversation as the Mariner. Honestly, he's more of an asshole, and we're talking
the
about
Mariner or Don Draper.
Don Draper. He's way the worst. And I know that you said he wanted to kill a child, the Mariner, that is. I know you said that. I'm still saying Don Draper is worse.
All right. Well, I'm not going to argue with you about that, since we're also not allowed to talk about Yellowstone. I'm not going to talk about Mad Men. But I will say, I think a movie with a protagonist that's this hateable, like there's something about the crew working on a film like that when it's not going well, you start to lose faith in a film when there's nothing, when you're not seeing the redeeming value of the movie. Like I'm projecting that. I didn't read that anywhere or see that.
Right.
But I do know that
you have worked on productions. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that crews really get boosted up by a great performance or by seeing the thing they read happen. They're like, man, we're doing it. You know, like they really feel like they're part of it, and they should, because they are part of it. And I feel like seeing this character be so terrible and having such a hard time might be a difficult obstacle for this crew. But I'm projecting that.
No, but it is real, and some of them may have really felt that way. But the other thing that I would say that you're counting, or is important that you're not counting as much, is that was probably just went unsaid, because most of the people working on the crews working on this level were most likely it's like no matter where you're working, you don't say shit like that or show that shit.
Oh, they're not saying it on set, but they're definitely going to drinks at some bar in Maui and being like, this is a nightmare, or wherever they're shooting.
For real. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know, it's a morale thing, right? Like this is the rumblings are happening because of all this shit, and then you start doubting the movie. Like that's what happens, you know.
And then you're prickly pear when it comes down to
right. And then suddenly everyone's a mariner, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I think most people who worked on Waterworld were probably consummate, professionals. Just
of
because
course they were. Yeah.
You don't get to the highest highs, without taking care of the lowest lows, and
as far as I can
those
tell,
rivers.
That's right. As far as I can tell, Kevin Costner is a consummate professional for the most part.
That's what I also found out, because it's like, you get that story less from Prince of Thieves, but Waterworld really does put a shine on it, where he's like, oh, you're going to leave again? All right, I'll take care of it. It's that kind of like, fuck. Yeah, he really stepped up for Waterworld.
Right. I mean, I know there's that quote that he said about how his director's like, would you let your actor do this? But like, reminder, the guy also he fronted half the budget. I mean, or at the time, half the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not just an actor. It's his movie.
I also stopped the quote early. Later, he said, like, also, Kevin Reynolds, if you were as pretty as me, you wouldn't be in this situation.
That's what Kevin Costner said?
No, I'm just fucking with
I was like, oh my God. What a quote. I love your fake quotes. He presumably called it Kevin's Gate. I love that. What a quote.
That's real. That's 100% real.
I bet it is.
Fish tar.
Fish tar.
That's what I would call it too. That's a great name for a terrible water.
Fish tar?
For Waterworld.
Hell yeah.
It's perfect.
We could have called Shape of Water Fish tar. That would have been pretty chill.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, that's me. That's me on Waterworld.
You did an excellent job, because you all this stuff. Like, I know you said you're taking a break from directing, but really, like, this is what directing is. This is making a film in the middle of whatever the world gives you.
Right.
Like I've bagged on Kevin Reynolds a little bit just because the reputation he has, but like, my God, this would be the worst movie to try to make. I would be so
right.
miserable.
And it's a bunch of your decisions that you're like, yeah, I can live with this. I don't think I can live with that, so that I should cut that out of my brain. But like this, I really want to hold on to. And then every producer is also doing that. And you're like, okay, I guess I'm beholden to this reality too. And then being able and struggling to kind of hold those contending realities all afloat at the same time. That's masterful work for anybody. That's an enormous job, and one that you can easily break from just the anxiety and absolute like daunting aspect of it, especially as the budget balloons and you're like, okay, I do not want to be the person who sank the $175 million.
I'm the guy
movie.
Messing this up.
Then Then my legacy is a story of don't be me.
Right,
and I can't live with that. And that's horrifying. So,
I mean, also
probably had a lot of dark nights is all.
No question. I mean, you also can't underestimate what it's like to watch a slow motion disappointment happen, which I assume must be happening to him all the time, and then try to keep your composure.
Right.
Because, like, your composure is all sort of contingent on the reason I'm in this business is to make a thing I love that I'm proud of. It's like fundamentally an emotional choice you made to be here. And then that choice, you're being pummeled with it every day. Like, I look back on, like, just the little things I used to complain about making films that cracked, and I can absolutely see myself doing some of the stuff he did. You know?
Right.
Like, cause like not even because he's a diva. It looks like he's a diva from the, highlight reel. But imagine living with this disappointment and having to be the engine pushing this film forward. It's a lot to take.
It's a lot to take. Yeah. But man, oh man, is it not a cautionary tale of you live with the choices. And if one of those choices is shoot on open water, you're already not winning the war.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it's less problematic to do it for a shorter period of time. But like, not a lot of movies are just out at sea, and they always end up ballooning and being impossible to make. That's what happens.
Yeah. It's not water. It's Waterworld is what I want to get to. Point is, the whole world is water, so it's all got to be water. That's what we're talking about.
Let's get the fuck out of here. I'm at it.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.